discuss the halacha that is applicable to releasing bloodthirsty murderers.
Okay, I can discuss that, but first let me give you my.
I wrote. Beg your pardon.
I'll come to that in a moment, but first let me give you my answer. The only possible correct answer is mine, of course, to the yes or no, to the yes or no question. Should we be happy or sad? The halacha is that an onen, someone whose immediate relative has died, a parent, a child, a sibling, a spouse, is an onen and patur, exempt from mitzvahs aseh until the kavura, until the burial. And then Shiva begins. Now, the question is, why are they exempt? Well, al pi drush, I might say, consider the following. Do you know about children? They're like you and me, but much littler. You see them in Jewish homes running around.
I'm still one. I'm an arrested child.
Oh, kamoni.
Okay.
Now, these little creatures whom we call children, if you get to know them, they are either 100% sameach or 100% miserable and sad. And they can flip from one to the other in an instant. But they are incapable of integrating simcha and sadness together. They can't be both. They're either 100% one or 100% the other. As you mature, you're able to internalize, you're able to simultaneously have feelings of simcha and feelings of sadness for different things. That's a mature adult, is able to integrate both together. The onen, someone whose immediate family member has just passed away, a spouse, a parent, a child, or a sibling, it reverts temporarily to the status of a child. They are so consumed by their sadness. They are 100% sad, and temporarily they have no room for simcha at all. And therefore they've reverted to the status of a child and are exempt from mitzvot. So the only possible correct answer is sadness and happiness integrated together. We experience both at the same time. Now, as far as the halacha, as far as halacha considerations for release of well, a terrorist is not exactly the right word, because what we're more precisely concerned with is release of murderers who have every reasonable expectation that they would want to continue murdering, and this, of course, has nothing to do specifically with terrorism. It would have to do with any murderer. Well, I once again have the only possible correct approach to these matters, and how fortunate you are to be able to hear from me the correct answer. The answer is that I'll give you an example. Imagine that you are an engineer, and at the moment you are designing the water system for a new city. I hope you will agree with me that it makes no sense to consult with a rabbi about the diameter of the pipes. For the diameter of the pipes, that's what we have engineers to figure out. What is the best diameter and what should the pipes be made out of? And exactly how should they be laid into the ground? Well, for this, we have engineers. That's not a question for rabbis. And of course, if you have a high-rise building over, how much is it? I think over 8 floors. There's a certain height above which the building has to have a pump installed so that the water can get to the upper floors. Now, if you're the engineer designing that building or the architect, oh, here we might have a question of Shabbos, whether there's a Shabbos problem, how to design the pump so it'll be able to work on Shabbos without a problem. That could be a halachic question. Now, similarly, in politics, politics and diplomacy, incidentally, are in concept the same. Within the country, it's called politics. Between different countries, it's called diplomacy. But in concept, it's all the same. And as far as politics are concerned, uh, religion, that is halacha, and politics should be kept separate, just like engineering and halacha should be kept separate. Um, the and there's a very important reason for this, more important in politics than in engineering. It's more important in politics and diplomacy because in order for politics to work, in order for a country to function, in order for diplomacy to work, for relations between countries to function, it is essential that there be room for compromise. And as soon as you take a religious position, an ideological position, a halachic position, you've eliminated the possibility of compromise. Politics becomes impossible. Diplomacy becomes impossible, and countries and international relations simply will collapse. There's no way to function that way. Therefore, bottom line, the politicians have to work this out.
Well, how did I know that was going to come?
Because so insightful.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that because I don't have, you checkmate me every time.
Of course, you, like I, have some influence over the politicians. We decide whom we are going to vote for, and therefore we have a voice in these matters. And, that's why we have elections.
So can I just, just try my, my luck, push it a little bit more, that, during the Holocaust, when the rabbis discouraged people from leaving, and they could have had a very big influence on saving so many lives. So
many people, so many Jewish souls could have been saved, right?
Right. If the rabbis had had warned them of danger. Rabbis have a lot of influence.
You're Hungarian. Surely you have read Em Habanim Smecha.
We're studying it right now with Yael.
Okay.
And it's very sad. And I see history, the Rabbonim.
Very powerful sefer.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, Yael asked me to ask you, this is a new subject. In learning, what is a good translation of the word kinuyim of Hashem?
This is my initial thought. Alternative names.
Okay. Yafe.
If I can think of something better, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Translation. Wow. Just remember that translations are always approximate. There's no such thing as a precise translation outside of some technical fields like chemistry and physics, where you can get precise translations.
I see.
But in any real discourse, precise translation is never possible. This is true for semantic reasons. It's also true for grammatical reasons. Consider for a moment, you speak English.
Why do you ask that?
Because I want to give an example.
Talking to you.
I want to give an example in English. In English, it's easy enough to distinguish between he and she. But if we're speaking a language like Hungarian, we just say
Yeah. Yeah.
And that does duty for both he and she. If it matters, then you can add something that's feminine or add something that's masculine. But in Hebrew, we have more, mora. In Hungarian, like in English, teacher does duty for both. If there's some reason why you have to emphasize it's a male teacher or a female teacher, so you can add extra words. You can do that in Hungarian as well. But so in any event,
Okay, toda rabba.
Before I begin, and I want to talk about hard cheese today, not for the purpose of catching mice, but rather for the question of waiting 6 hours or 3 hours or whatever your waiting time is, waiting after hard cheese. But before I come to that, let me ask you if you have any questions of a halachic nature that you wish to begin with. All is well? Let's get the stuff on the screen. Click on share. Double click on the text. Nothing happens. And here it is. Okay. Hard cheese. The Shulchan Aruch says, Achal gvina, if you eat cheese, any cheese, it doesn't matter hard, soft, you eat any cheese. And when the Shulchan Aruch says gvina, cheese, it means anything milchik, doesn't have to be precisely cheese. It can be a milchik pudding, it can be anything milky. Oh, are we better now? Now it's working okay?
Oh, good heavens. I thought it was just me. I thought I was going crazy.
And I thought it was just me. I lost my voice. Okay, but my voice is okay. Baruch Hashem. Bottom line,
Oh, wait, I didn't hear anything
yeah,
after the
okay.
Shulchan Aruch.
I'm going to sum
Oh,
up. Bottom line, if you eat anything milchik, you can switch right away to fleischik. Uh, you need a fresh tablecloth, you need fresh cutlery, you need fresh dishes and so forth. But if you have a separate table set for fleischik, after milchik, you can just turn around and immediately begin eating meat. You just have to check the hands. How long does that take? So there, I just did it. And at night, when it's too dark to check the hands, you wash your hands. So either wash the hands or check the hands. And you have to clean your mouth and rinse your mouth. How do you clean the mouth and rinse the mouth? You clean the mouth by chewing some bread or chewing anything aside from dates. Dates are very sticky. They stick in your mouth. They don't. That's not good. And then rinse your mouth with water or wine or anything else, and you're set to go. Bottom line, according to the Shulchan Aruch, the Sardic poskim, there's no waiting time after milk. Doesn't matter whether it's milk, hard cheese, soft cheese, anything milchic. Question, Shmuel? We're okay?
I think maybe try, sorry, I forgot your name. Maybe turn your
You did.
volume. Yehudit. Oh, can you hear now? Maybe turn your volume up.
I did. I'm fine now.
Okay.
Oh, all right, great. Sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
I thought I heard otherwise.
okay. So we know the Sephardic approach. Zero waiting time. Haggah, the Ramah adds in the Shulchan Aruch the Ashkenaz thinking. Yesh machmirim. Some people are strict. That means the Ashkenaz team are strict. Lahamtin sheish shaot, to wait for 6 hours. Afilu b'basar achar gavina, after cheese, after any cheese. Lo chashuv ma. Ashkenazim yesh nohagim. There's an Ashkenaz minhag to wait 6 hours after any cheese before eating meat. V'chein noagim shekol gavina kasha. The minhag is, some Ashkenazim are machmir after any kind of cheese, but the minhag in Ashkenaz communities is to wait only after gavina kasha, only after hard cheese. Ein ochli machareya afilu basar of. After hard cheese, we don't even have chicken. We wait 6 hours, or whatever your waiting time is, just like in cheese after meat. Yesh makilim, even amongst Ashkenazim, there are some who follow the Sephardic approach with no waiting time at all. Ein limchot, we do not object to them. The Ashkenazim who have no waiting time after hard cheese, well, there's no reason to object. That is the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. That is the opinion of Rabbi Yosef Karo, and Ashkenazim can rely upon that, but the more common minhag amongst Ashkenazim is to wait after hard cheese. Just have to make sure your hands are clean. Just have to make sure your mouth is clean. That's all. Mihu tov lahachmir. It's advisable to be strict and wait 6 hours or whatever your waiting time is. It's tov to wait 6 hours after hard cheese. Well, this has become more or less the universal minhag in Ashkenaz communities, and that's good. Someone who doesn't wait after hard cheese, no reason to object. But someone who asks for advice, the advice is tov lahamtin. It's good to wait. But and all of this, of course, begs a definition of what is hard cheese. In order to follow the minhag correctly and wait 6 hours after hard cheese, we should know what is hard cheese. And of course, the rabbis disagree amongst themselves on the definition of hard cheese. Let's take a look at the principal opinions. The Shach, who's in the outside margin of the standard editions of the Shulchan Aruch, says, Minastam, in general, if the cheese is 6 months old or older, if the cheese is at least 6 months old, the cheese has been aged for 6 months or more, Hashiva Kasha, that's called hard cheese. As cheese is aged in the factory, it slowly loses moisture through evaporation, and the cheese gets denser and denser and denser. And the 6 months of evaporation, what in the business is called 6 months of aging, that gets the cheese dense enough to be called hard cheese. That's the opinion of the Shach, which is an easy enough criterion to apply. The Taz, on the other hand, who's on the inside margin of the standard editions of the Shulchan Aruch, disagrees. And he says, no, 6 months is not a good criterion. He wrote, Lahachmir, you should be strict, and wait 6 hours after cheese, rak begvina mitulaat, only if the cheese is wormy, has worms in it. If the cheese has worms in it, then you should wait 6 hours. Or if you have cheese which was actually made in the stomach of a cow, a slaughtered cow. You slaughter the cow, you take the stomach, you clean it out, you pour in milk, cheese which is made, well, no one does this. Nowadays, there's no such thing on the market. So we don't have to worry about that. But let's turn our attention for a moment to wormy cheese. Absolutely delicious. The worms are a good source of protein and highly recommended by nutritionists all over the world. The idea is as follows. It says in the Torah that creepy crawlies are prohibited, and that includes worms. It's a Torah prohibition to eat worms. But the verse in the Torah says creepy, crawly things which creep and crawl upon the earth are prohibited. And therefore, a worm or any insect which has never crept along the earth is permitted. Let me give you some examples, and you'll understand. Imagine a fish swallows a parasite, and a worm begins to grow in the flesh of the fish. Well, that worm has obviously never crept or crawled upon the earth. It spent its entire life in the flesh of the fish. Permitted. Now, I'm sure you know that nowadays bugs have become the big bugaboo of modern kashrus. As you know, today people are really quite nervous about insect infestation in all the food they eat. People are becoming quite concerned about this, and indeed, many of the Mahadran Hechsherim absolutely refuse to give Hechsherim to certain species of fish, which are commonly infested with worms, like mackerel. You can't buy mackerel with a Mahadran Hechsher because it's so frequently infested. And those fish which do have Mahadran Hechsherim are checked very carefully. Even a simple fish like cod, you cannot buy the head of a cod because the head is so frequently infested. Never get a Mahadran Hechsher for that. The rabbi, Rav Revach is his name, who has spent a lot of time and effort trying to promote this halachic position, was visiting in New York a few years ago, promoting this problem, trying to get the American hechsherim the OU and the other negligent rabbis who simply don't follow the halacha properly, trying to convince them not to approve of fish that have worms in them. The Rosh Yeshiva of Torah Vodaas, Rav Belsky, just passed away recently, but he was the head of Kashrus in the OU, the largest Kashrus organization in the world. He was the head for many years, and Rav Revach went to him to complain about the lack of hashgacha for worms in fish. And Rav Belsky said, "Show me the worms. I want to see them." And Rav Revach went to the fish market and bought a big box full of fish and brought them back to the Rosh Yeshiva's office and started cutting them apart, and unfortunately couldn't find a single example of a worm. And Rav Belsky was not very impressed. But then, just to be sure, Rav Belsky approached Rav Moshe Feinstein towards the end of Rav Moshe's life and asked Rav Moshe Feinstein, should we be concerned about worms in fish when we give hechsherim to different fish products? To which Rav Moshe Feinstein responded, no, there's no reason for concern. I only know about this because it's published in the tshuva of Rav Belsky. Then Rav Belsky says that he asked Rav Moshe Feinstein to kindly give a written tshuva saying that there's no need to be concerned about worms in fish, and Rav Moshe refused, Rav Belsky, and refused to give a written tshuva, saying, I'm not going to write a tshuva about something that the Shulchan Aruch explicitly permits. Now, as far as cheese is concerned, we have the same issue. If the egg is laid in the cheese or on the cheese, and the worm hatches and spends its entire life in the cheese or on the cheese, then that worm has not crept or crawled upon the earth and is simply permitted. In the words of the Shulchan Aruch, afilu tolaim koftzim ana va'ana, even if you see the worms dancing to and fro on the cheese, hare ze mutar, this is permitted. Now, one further comment is necessary for a complete understanding, and that is a worm in a fruit or vegetable. Take an apple, for example. If you open up an apple, you cut open an apple and you find a worm in it, or a potato, any fruit or vegetable. The question arises, is that a worm which was hatched in the potato, in the apple, and spent its entire life in the potato or the apple, in which case it never crept along the earth and is simply permitted. That's all there is to it. Or this worm which crawled along the branch of the tree and bored its way into the apple, or the branch of the tree is connected to the stem of the tree. The stem of the tree is connected to the earth. Walking along the branch of the tree is halachically the same as creeping upon the earth, or did the worm actually crawl along the earth and then bore its way into the potato? Well, it might not be easy to figure out the facts. And if you can't figure out the facts, you have to be machmir, because we're talking about a Torah prohibition. You're not allowed to eat the worm. But if it's perfectly clear that there's no hole on the outside of the apple, if it's perfectly clear that there's no hole from the outside of the potato, that the worm spent its entire life in the apple or potato, it is permissible. You might not want to eat worms. I have nothing to say about your taste in culinary matters. Eat what you like, don't you know? Like, halachically speaking, the worms on the cheese are mutter. And back in the good old days, when all was right with the world and people wasted no energy on refrigerators, cheese got wormy. Took time for it to get wormy. The amount of time it takes for the worms to grow and become visible, that's the amount of drying time necessary for cheese to be designated as hard cheese according to the Taz? Well, nowadays, this hardly ever, if ever, happens, because nowadays, when the cheese comes from the factory, of course, it's free of infestation, and you keep the cheese in the refrigerator. So simply, this is a useless sign nowadays for hard cheese. But the 6-month rule of the Shach, that's easy enough to apply. The Or HaShulchan says, Hageder shel gvinot kashot, he says, yesh bem harbe shamnunit. What makes a hard cheese hard is it has a lot of fat in it. Now, of course, all the fat in the hard cheese was originally in the milk and was originally in the soft cheese until it turned into hard cheese through evaporation. The concentration of fat rose. You might have 4 or 5, even, sometimes even 6% cheese, 6% fat in soft cheeses. Evaporate the water and concentrate it in the course of time in making hard cheese, so the fat concentration rises to 20, 30, even as high as 35%. It's the fat concentration which makes it hard cheese. And why is that important? Hatam nimshach harbe zman. The taste of the cheese is largely, almost entirely, in the fat content. The rest of the cheese, aside from the fat in the cheese, has vanishingly little taste. Same thing with meat, incidentally. It's the fat in the meat which gives the taste. You eat 0% cheese, it hardly has any taste at all. The more fat there is in the cheese, the more taste it has. Um, the more fat you put into the ground beef in making a hamburger, the more taste you are going to have. Make it with fat-free, it'll have very little taste. So since hard cheese has more taste in it, that taste lasts in your mouth a longer time. That's why you have to wait 6 hours. So let's set aside the criterion of the Taz, the worminess, because that's not very practical for us nowadays. We're left with 2 practical signs of what makes hard cheese. The Shach, 6 months of aging, and the Or HaShulchan, it has strong taste to it. For the sake of completeness, I just quote the words of the Shulchan Aruch, which I mentioned earlier, that the cheese which has worms in it is permitted even if the worms are seen dancing to and fro on the cheese. Doesn't matter. Now, what about the ordinary cheese that you buy in the market nowadays? You go to the supermarket and you buy whatever brand of cheese you buy. Kosher, of course. Has it been aged 6 months? In which case, Ashkenazim are advised to wait 6 hours. Does it have high concentration of fat? Well, let's see. Let's see what the modern poskim have to say about ordinary brands of commercial cheese which are sold in the market today. We begin with the Shevet HaLevi, Rav Vosner, the leading Hasidic posek of Bnei Brak in the 20th century, and he wrote as follows: Darki lachmir b'zeh. I personally am very strict on this matter, and I wait 6 hours after anything which seems like it's hard cheese. Ta'ami, my reason, de kayom hakol nimkar b'chulut. The reason is because nowadays, unlike in the good old days in the shtetl in Eastern Europe, where the balabusta used to make her own cheese, rather like my grandmother, who always had these bags of cheese hanging over the sink, dripping, waiting until they would become hard. Unlike the good old days, where the balabusta used to make our own cheese. Nowadays, everyone just buys cheese in the supermarket. No one nowadays. Most people are not making their own cheese. Yesh kol minei gvinot. There's so many different styles of cheese in the supermarket nowadays. So many different brands. So many different kinds. אלה שהם פחות משישה חודשים, אלה שהם יותר משישה חודשים. Some of the cheeses in the supermarket were aged over 6 months. Some of them were aged under 6 months. היה צריך לזה לוח זמנים, מתי נעשו? We would need to have a date on every package of cheese, the date when they started production and the date when they sent it to the stores. Well, if they would give us these dates, we would see whether the cheese had been aged 6 months, but they don't. They give us the original production date and they give us the expiration date, but how long it was aged, they don't bother to tell us. So it's hard to know whether it's 6 months or more. We can't figure out regarding a specific cheese. Well, it's not easy to figure out whether it was aged 6 months or more. Okay, therefore, Leinu Lachmir, therefore I am strict and wait 6 hours after anything which seems like it might be hard cheese, because who knows? Maybe it was aged 6 months or longer. I'm not going to go to the factory, wherever the factory is, and check out each individual package of cheese. In any way, מצאתי באחרונים שנוטים להחמיר בגבין הקשה אפילו פחות מ6 חודשים. Anyway, the Ramah said that there is a minhag Ashkenaz to wait after any cheese, even if it's not aged 6 months or more. ולהקל בכל גבינה רכה, גם כשהיא קצת מלוכה, או כשנותנים לתוכה איזה טיפות מעמיד. Soft cheese, I don't wait, even if the soft cheese is salty, like Bulgarian cheese, for example, Bulgarian style cheese, or even if they added some enzyme to the soft cheese to harden it. Soft cheese, I don't wait. I wait after all hard cheeses, anything which I might consider a hard cheese, because I have no simple way of knowing whether it was aged 6 months or longer. Well, that's what he wrote. And of course, that's what he recommends that you do. Soft cheeses, no problem. Anything gvina, tzuhuba, anything which appears hard, wait. Well, here's another opinion. The Tshuvot v'Hanhagot. Rav Sternbuch of the Eda Haredis. He's the Ravid, the Rosh Av Bezdin of the Eda Haredis today. She'ela. He was asked, Gvina Schweizarit. In the business, they call it Emmentaler cheese. That's the Swiss cheese with the holes in it. The holes are not worms. In the processing of the cheese, in the aging of the cheese, the carbon dioxide is formed, and the carbon dioxide makes bubbles. It makes those bubbles in the cheese. The holes are not worms. It's carbon dioxide makes the natural fermentation. That's how Swiss cheese is made. Swiss cheese with the holes, im tzarich lamtin sheshot, you have to wait 6 hours. Now, in the old country, back in the days when I lived in the old country, it's a long time ago, I've been in Israel a long time, but at least 50 years ago, in Switzerland, there were a grand total of 2 kinds of kosher cheese available. Things have changed today. There's a wide variety, I'm told. But back in the good old days, what I remember from Switzerland, there were 2 kinds of hard cheese available. There was Emmentaler. That's what outside of Switzerland is called the Swiss cheese with the holes in it. And there was another kind of hard cheese without the holes. Back there in Switzerland, all the Jews knew that the Emmentaler, the Swiss cheese, was aged in certain caves, are used for aging in real Swiss cheese in Switzerland. In the cool caves, they were aged for over 6 months, and therefore, for the Emmentaler, for the Swiss cheese, we waited 6 hours. For the other kind of hard cheese, Tilsiter it was called, Tilsiter cheese, we did not wait 6 hours. So they asked Rav Sternbuch, what about Swiss cheese? Now, of course, although the Swiss cheese in Switzerland was aged over 6 months in the aging caves. When they make Swiss cheese in Israel, it takes around a week and a half to make it. It's all made through chemical engineering. Tshuva. Here is his answer. Shamati shehore hagon edecharedis Ravais. I heard that Ravais, who was for many years the head of the Edecharedis in Yerushalayim, Zatzal, he's already passed away, but I heard that when he was the head of the Edecharedis, he said to a questioner, Yesh makom lahachmir sheish sha'ot gam begvinot shalanu. Even Israeli cheeses, which are aged for a week and a half, even they should even they call for a 6-hour waiting period because they're so concentrated. It's done chemically, it's done artificially in Israel, but still, it should be considered hard cheese. Bilvad sheyesh lo matirim lahamtin ra'ui l'nhoken. The rule is, throughout Talmudic literature, davar sheyesh lo matirim, something which in the course of time is going to be permitted anyway. Just wait a little bit, and it's going to become something which is prohibited now. And you wait until tomorrow, and it's just going to become permitted. There's no reason for any leniency whatsoever. You should be very strict. For example, chametz on Pesach. At the moment, it's chametz. Just wait a few days, and Pesach will be over, and it won't be chametz anymore, and it won't be prohibited. So there's no reason for any leniency at all for chametz on Pesach. Beitzah shenolda b'yom tov. An egg which was laid on Yom Tov is prohibited. The name of the prohibition is nolad, something which is born, anything which comes into the world and did not exist in the world before Yom Tov and comes into the world. Yom Tov is prohibited mishum nolad. There's no reason for any leniency at all regarding eggs which are laid on Yom Tov. One should be very strict because just wait a few hours, Yom Tov will be over, and then it will become permitted. Well, the Tshuvot to Hanhagot says it's the same thing with hard cheese. No reason for any leniency. We should always take the strictest practice and wait 6 hours. Just wait 6 hours, and then the meat is going to be permitted. So why should we be lenient? But if for some reason you're under pressure, if for some reason you have to have the fleischig meal now, there's room for leniency. Waiting 1 hour is surely sufficient if you are under pressure. If you're not under pressure, why not be strict and wait 6 hours? That's his approach. Okay, what have we seen up till now? We've seen the approach of the Shevach HaLevi, who says, well, don't know the facts, and therefore I always wait, and I advise everyone to wait after any kind of hard cheese. Tshuvot Hanhagot says, well, don't know, but since in a few hours the fleischig meal is going to be permitted in any event, why not just wait? If for some reason you can't wait, yesh al ma l'smoch, there's what to rely upon to be lenient. Now we come to my favorite two opinions, the Kovetz Tshuvot, Rav Elyashiv, and the Minchas Osher, Rav Asher Weiss. These are my two favorites. And I think the controversy between them reveals so much about the fundamental nature of Halacha. Let's see these two opinions. Rav Elyashiv, who was born in Chutz La'aretz, he was born in Lithuania, became as a child to Eretz Yisrael and spent his whole life in Eretz Yisrael. I don't think he had any memories of life in Chutz La'aretz. He came so young. He was very strict, and he required hamtana, waiting 6 hours after eating pizza. Oh, now pizza is the cheese in pizza, at least last time I ate pizza, I remember a few years ago I had a slice of pizza, and I remember distinctly the cheese was very soft, so liquidy. But still, you should wait 6 hours. Why? These are his words. The gvina tzuba, the yellow cheese, which they use for making pizza, he harifa, has such a strong taste. Chazaka, strong, sharp taste in the gvina tzuba, in the yellow cheese. Tam nimshach, the taste stays in your mouth for a long time. Ein nafkamina b'meshin nisrakaka. True, it got softened in the heat when you eat the pizza, but it's such a strong, sharp taste that it fulfills the definition of the Taz. Remember, the Taz was the one who said that because of the Aruch HaShulchan was the one who said because of the strong, sharp taste, that's why you have to wait. That's ordinary yellow cheese in the market today. That's Rav Elyashiv, who's more or less his whole life was spent in Eretz Yisrael. As I said, he came as a child. That's what he said. Minchas Asher, Rav Asher Weiss, who grew up in Union City, New Jersey, that's in Chutz La'aretz, wrote, copied over the words of Rav Elyashiv, and after copying over the words of Rav Elyashiv that we just looked at, he says, Lani dati, in my humble opinion, ein lahachmir bazeh, Israeli hard cheese, Israeli yellow cheese, calls for no strictness in waiting 6 hours. D'halo makor divrei haramoah b'Mordechai b'shem ha'maharam sheyichmir shematzo gavina ben shinav la'achar zman. After all, if we look at the sources of these ideas in the Rishonim, barur, it's clear, kashemesh, clear as daylight. Shebegavina tzuhuba didan, our yellow cheese. Names b'peh, melts in the mouth. Lo she'ach klal sheyishaer ben hashinaim. It's not going to get stuck between your teeth. It melts in the mouth and will not get stuck between your teeth. And therefore, after a short time passes, it's no longer in your mouth, and you can then have the fleischig meal. Not only is the cheese in the pizza not going to get stuck between your teeth because it's melted, even cold, hard cheese in Israel today, ordinary gvina tzuba, it will melt in your mouth. And even if it does get stuck between your teeth, in a little bit, it's going to dissolve and go away. Further, it's obvious, he writes, דגם אין בכלל גבינה קשה שהפוסקים דיברו בזה קשה מאוד שנשאר לאחר שעות שיניים כמו בשר. It's also pashut that the yellow cheese in Israel today is not very hard. Not very hard. Back in the old country, you remember there were two kinds of kosher cheese available in the old country when I was younger. Emmentaler, the Swiss cheese with the holes, and another style called Tilsiter. Well, for Pesach, one would go to the store and buy a whole wheel of cheese because we didn't want them to cut it with their knives for Pesach. We take it home, and a whole wheel is far more than one family needs. We would cut it apart at home and divide it among several families. Tilsiter cheese, the cheese where we did not wait for 6 hours, was cut with a knife. Take the wheel of cheese and a sharp knife, and you could cut it. Emmentaler cheese, on the other hand, Swiss cheese, the cheese with the holes in it, you could not cut with a knife. It's just too hard. How does one cut the wheel of cheese into pieces so it can be distributed among several families? the only practical way to do it, well, in the store they have a band saw to do it, an electrical band saw. That's how they cut it in the store. But at home, the only way to do it is to take a nylon cord and saw it back and forth through the cheese. That's the only way to. It's really hard. And Rav Asher Weiss, who grew up in Chutz La'aretz, he was familiar with what in Chutz La'aretz is called hard cheese, as opposed to soft cheese. Rav Elyashiv never in his life had what is considered hard cheese in Chutz La'aretz. And he thought that the Israeli cheeses are hard. And coming from Chutz La'aretz, Rav Asher Weiss said, that's not hard, you just cut it with a knife. מה שאמרו בגבינה קשה צריכה 6 חודשים, אין זה דומה כלל לגבינה צהובה שלנו. Ordinary yellow cheese in Israel, no reason to wait 6 hours, it's not been aged 6 months. ומה שכתב הרב אלישיב שטעמו נמשך הרבה זמן, what Rav Elyashiv wrote, that our Israeli yellow cheese has such a strong taste, such a sharp taste. צריך עיון. I have no idea what he meant. What makes him think that this cheese has a strong, sharp taste? I remember the cheeses we had in Chutz La'aretz. They had strong, sharp taste. What we have here in Israel is extraordinarily mild compared to what we were eating there. Everyone's going to decide for himself, oh, this is so sharp, which is apparently what Rav Elyashiv did. Oh, this cheese is so sharp, you should wait 6 hours. Well, compared to what? Compared to what in Chutz La'aretz was considered sharp cheese, this is nothing. You can't use your taste to decide what is sharp and what has a strong taste. We need some firmer rules than that. We should only rely upon what the poskim say. A 6-month cutoff period. I understand. That's a definition. Wormy. Take a look and see. That's a definition that I can work with. So hard that you can't cut it with a knife. That's a definition I can work with. But I think of it as being a very strong taste and a sharp taste. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on that. That's not a satisfactory halachic definition. Kevan she'en kan sfeika deraisa, below sfeika derabanan, since there's no room in this discussion for Torah prohibition. After all, min haTorah. Even with meat, even after meat, there's min haTorah, there's no waiting time. The waiting time after meat, after every waiting time, is only derabanan. And as far as cheese is concerned, it's not even derabanan. We saw the Shulchan Aruch said there's no waiting time, and the Ramah taught us it's only a minhag Ashkenaz to be strict and have a waiting time after hard cheese. Minhag ba'alma, it's only a minhag, no room here for a Torah prohibition, no room here for a rabbinic prohibition. Why on earth should we be strict? The rule is safek derabanan lakula, and this is not even a derabanan. This is just a minhag Ashkenaz. Lachein, therefore, ein lachmir begavina tzuba. Therefore, our yellow cheese here in Israel, gvina mishuleshet, the triangle cheese, which they sell in round packages in the supermarket, no reason to wait after this. Now, I really like these two tshuvas because they give a clear picture of the conflicting approach of those poskim like Rav Elyashiv, whose entire life experience is based on exactly one style of yellow cheese marketed here in Israel, as opposed to the Rav Weiss, who grew up in Chutz La'aretz and has much broader experience in cheese and therefore views things very differently. The position of the Chazon Ish. The position of the Chazon Ish on this issue is La'achar achilas gevina tzuba, after eating yellow cheese, Amar li Chazanish said to me, Rak im ze amad only if it was aged for a year should you wait. And that simply doesn't happen. He also grew up in Chutz La'aretz. Came to Eretz Israel as a mature youngster, and he was familiar with the difference between hard cheese and soft cheese from Chutz La'aretz. The Mishnah Halachas, Rav Menashe Klein, originally from Hungary, became top-seeded halachic posek in New York. He brings two opinions regarding hard cheese. Should we follow the stricter opinion, or do the cheeses we have nowadays should we not consider them hard? His answer: I'm always strict. I always wait 6 hours. Even though I know Reb Moshe Feinstein was lenient, Samachti l'rot shevi b'shem Rav Elyashiv shetzarich lamtin. I'm very happy to see that Rav Elyashiv says you should be strict, and that justifies my approach. Da'ati maskemet, I agree with the strict approach. Tov, the last source to look at is this lovely sefer, which I highly recommend to you, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch by Rav Pfeiffer. There are many books out there called Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. This particular sefer is Kitzur Shulchan Aruch written by Rav Pfeiffer. Rav Pfeiffer was a Rosh Yeshiva in South Africa. And he wrote this book as a kitzur, an abridgment of the parts of the Yoredea dealing with kashrus. And it's excellent. It's an excellent abridgment. What he did was he took the material in the Shulchan Aruch and rearranged it in an orderly fashion. The Shulchan Aruch, as it stands, is an organizational disaster area. He reorganized the material and was quite successful in reformulating it in very simple, straightforward, concise language. And therefore, this particular, it's several volumes. I'm quoting from the volume by Bus, which is the volume which has all the practical stuff in it. The other volumes are all more the theoretical elements of the Yoredea. But this book is wonderful. Not only is it a wonderful book, but it has been this one volume has been translated into English. Not only that, but it's even been published with an English translation together with illustrations. And that's available in the market. The original Hebrew is a very thin book. The English with the illustrations is a little bit fatter, but excellent. They're all excellent, worth studying. In any event, he quotes different opinions. He says, I've just received a manuscript of Reb Aaron Kotler, the founder of the Yeshiva in Lakewood. It's going to be published eventually. It was never actually published, but he saw his manuscript. And he says a bacher was invited to eat a meal by the Rosh Yeshiva, by Reb Aaron Kotler. Kasher higishu lefanav basar, when the Rebbitzin brought the meat to the table, the bacher, the Talmud in the Yeshiva said, I can't eat. I just had yellow cheese earlier today. Reb Aaron Kotler said to him, that cheese is not hard. The cheese you ate is not hard, and therefore you should eat the meal that the Rebbitzin is presenting to you. Bottom line, what have we seen? Rov minyan, verov binyan. The mainstream majority view of the great poskim today is that there is in the market such a thing as hard cheese, but most of the cheese is not hard. Wormy, we don't have. Aged 6 months or longer, well, the Swiss cheese, the Emmentaler style, is indeed, if it comes from Switzerland, it is indeed aged for 6 months or longer. Emmentaler, the Swiss style cheese made in America or made in Israel, is made in around a week and a half. It's not aged very long. And although that hard cheese does exist, the overwhelming amount of cheese in the market today is not hard. And as we learned, there's no room here for a Torah prohibition, no room here for a rabbinic prohibition. We're talking about a minhag ba'alma, and therefore, in cases of doubt, there's surely room for leniency. Misha mahmir, well, just like the Ramah said, ein limhot, I'm not going to object to anyone who's entirely mako and has no waiting time after any cheese. I'm not going to object. Well, simple, I'm not going to object to anyone who wishes to wait 6 hours after any cheese. If there are such opinions, and one could rely upon them if one wishes to be machmir. With this, I'm going to pause and wish you a good week and a safe week and good Shabbos, and look forward to seeing you next week. Any
Shabbat
questions or
shalom.
issues?
Yeah, Shabbat shalom. Normally I have I where should I start? Well, I guess I'll start with the last thing you said. So even if someone wanted to follow the minhag, it sounds like the overwhelming majority of the cheeses out there wouldn't even satisfy. So even if you didn't know the information, it's probably not anyway.
Right.
But
Correct.
if someone did know it was 6-month cheese,
And that's
there's
tov.
Sephardic, they don't have to wait.
It's tov lachmir. That's tov lachmir for Ashkenazim.
But if there's Sephardim, they don't even have to wait. Like it just
Correct.
is never a question.
Correct.
It's so interesting.
Correct. And one, of course, must be precise. If the question is, do I have to wait 6 hours after the cheese, which was aged for 6 months? The answer is no. If the question is it tov? Is it advisable? The answer is yes.
Got it. I think this is short. You said it was obviously written in the Shulchan Aruch, according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, so he didn't feel like he needed to write it. When you say obvious that the fish grew up in the worms grew up in.
The Shulchan Aruch says flat out that worms and fish are permitted.
Oh. Got it.
Okay.
It said, you said lachar sha'ah, and then you said in English a short while. Is that because of the way that he meant it?
Hebrew word sha'ah means a short time. It's only recently that we have clocks, you know. You say to someone in antiquity or in the Middle Ages, sha'ah, you did not mean 60 minutes on the clock.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. On the subject of dates and times, is there a way to date Hebrew dates? Like if you have 20.1.2025, or in America you have 1.20.
You want to convert to the Jewish date?
No, I want to know if there's a shorthand that's accepted instead of saying the 20th of Tevet, Tafshin Pei, Hey, which is Tafshin Pei is good. The Kaf is good, but what about like the month? And is there a way to?
The name of the month has to be spelled out. There's no simple abbreviation in Hebrew.
We don't have like a thing that you would be able to see. So
therefore, if you want to tabulate things as computerized data, so you have to add some lines of code to in the code. The name of the month will be changed into a number, but the user will never see that.
that's exactly why I was asking. Okay.
And then you can organize things by date, but that's only something that the code will do. The code will assign a number to each month.
Why haven't we done that? We never did it. It's people.
Of course, the question should probably be reversed. Why in European languages do we have this system, which, as you know, in North America, it's the opposite of Europe. In Europe, it's the day, month, year. In America, the month and the day are reversed, which leads to, of course, endless confusion. Maybe this is why it's not done outside of Europe and North America, because of the endless confusion. Don't know.
Thank you. And
If you
last,
find an answer, let me know.
I will. Okay, this is my last question. You mentioned the difference between the Minchat, the Minchat and Revel, and Revel Yashiv.
Right.
It sounds a bit like this broad view of the world and leading to differences in halacha, and a more narrow view of differences in halacha. Sounds like it parallels the journey of an FFB and a Choser B'Teshuvah.
There could be some parallels here. There could be some parallels, definitely.
Because at times it seems just like not even being able to see eye to eye, and I'm wondering.
Definitely. The typical Choser B'Teshuvah that you're referring to has much broader familiarity with what's going on outside of the Beis Midrash in the general world, and therefore might look at things a little bit differently. What in the Beis Midrash might be considered very unusual. Let's take a big example. What in the Beis Midrash might be considered highly immodest and erotic, someone who is more familiar with the general world outside says, that's not. I'll give you an example. A woman walking down the street, dressed in a way that in the yeshivas, in the frum world, would be considered highly immodest. If you would approach her on Rehov Dizengoff or on Fifth Avenue in New York, and you would say to her, "Dearest Madame, why are you dressed immodestly in public?" It's clear to me you would deserve a slap across the face. How dare you? How dare you? I put a lot of work into thinking about what I'm going to wear. Of course, this is modest. You think I would appear in public immodestly?
That's funny. True. Yeah.
Okay. Very well. Have a good week.
Thank you. You too. Thank you. Bye.